Let's find an easier way to shop. Let's
Good morning, or good day. I'm learning my lesson slowly. Good day, ladies and gents, not morning. Today I don't have a lot of time this morning, but I wanted to try and get one idea put into this before I kind of ran off for the day to do a bunch of errands. And the idea that came to mind, and the problem I noted last night, was that because of the way Perlin or any kind of not Perlin, I should say, but simplex noise works, which is what I'm using to generate my terrain and generate the biomes and generate pretty much all my random information, is that I am picking a number, or it is picking a number, and then it's smoothing it in and out of its gradient. And the problem is that when your random numbers are that gradiated, certain things will always happen. For example, you can see I have these biome types that are defined. And what that means for us is a plains is always only going to be next to a forest. Forests will only ever be next to plains and mountains mountains will only ever be next to forests. And it's nice in some ways. We can abuse that to make some cool stuff. But the one thing I really want to fix here is that I want to have this be a little more dynamic. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm probably going to end up layering two different noise maps on top of each other to get the desired output in the end. This should make it a little more interesting. I'm not actually sure if this will be the end-all solution, or if this is just a dumb idea I had this morning that, I'm going to spend probably the better part of maybe an hour, hour and a half on, and then throw away or something. But it's worth a shot, right? So the idea is that we're going to add one more thing to our biome setup, right? Because we have to layer our biomes on top of each other. And so what I'm going to layer is heat. I want heat to be part of our biome type. Kind of the same way that Minecraft layers all of its biomes into 5 major subgroups. You have icy, you have cold, I think they call it lush, warm, and hot, right? He's got these 5 categories that all of his biomes fall into. And I think if we start mixing heat with other parameters, that we're going to get something more interesting. Of course, that means we're going to need more biomes as well to test some of this out with, but that's not the end of the world. The other thing to note is we'll have to add a little data. Ooh, this task is getting bigger by the second. We're going to have to add a little data to biomes just to say basic things like, oh, hey, forests and plains are kind of warm, whereas a mountain is going to be cold, and desert will be warm. I'm actually going to go so far as to even try and add deserts right now. Let's see here. Da-dum-dum-dum. How was I going to do this is the question. Let's... And you can see there's a bunch of data and information here that's already changed because I'm working on getting 3D models actually into the terrain itself, but that's such a big task that it's a bit of a monster to fight with that one on its own. So let's see here. New biome type. It's going to be similar to plains, but what we're going to do is we're going to call this desert. And let's see, contains trees, no. Minimum height is not going to be minus 0.5 because anything that dips below the water height level can have water in it, and we don't really want water inside of our desert. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. And we'll just make it go as high as 1. We'll just leave it like that. Color specifiers. Our current color specifiers are pretty... I think they're kind of yellowish. Let's see, yellow RGB values. Just look at a quick table here of a bunch of yellows and see what we can do to make this maybe a little prettier or easier to use. Let's start with let's see. Okay, so we're gonna, for our darker color, 0.74, 0.75. I'm a fan of easy to manage numbers. 183 is probably also, it's 0.7. I can do that. So we're brightening up the desert a little bit, if only because sand is very reflective. And then 107, really? 107, wow. 107 is 0.4. Okay, and now we need a bright yellow. Let's go for kind of like this lemon chiffon. That, or we can try, let's try the pale goldenrod first. So 238 over 255 is 0.93. 232 is also 0.9. And finally, 107. I'm just using Google for all of my calculations because I'm a little lazy at the moment. There we go. Red, green, blue. Yeah, okay. 4-2. There we go. And the other thing we always have to do whenever we add a new biome in is we have to tack in a little bit of code, which I still need to figure out a way to get rid of. I'm not a huge fan of this at the moment. Compare text biome type string, stringify our K biome desert. And that means our offset is K biome desert. Yeah, okay, this is looking like it's going to be a larger task than I was hoping it would be. We'll see what we can get done in an hour, though. Doop, doop, doop. Off it goes. Obviously, we've got an error here. Oh. I forgot to add something last night. And it's probably just going to need a getter. I hope it's just going to need a getter. Yeah, it's just a getter. Okay. Whew. Worried there for a moment. Get contains trees. I'm actually not going to put get in front of that one. Because contains trees is kind of an English term in and of itself. Does it contain trees? Or contains trees? In the same way, you'll see people write is this instead of get this. It's kind of like, is this property of this object? We don't really need to we don't need to go so far as to say get is this. It doesn't make a ton of sense. There we go. Get. Right, not get. Contains trees. Haha. That's the one downside is if you have all your getters on the get keyword, and then you have a bunch of things also marked with is this or contains this, then we're getting into kind of ambiguous territory. And that's when, oh man, I kind of wish I could name that better at the moment, but I'm in a hurry, so I'm not going to really worry about this. Okay, everything compiles. And I've just got a couple things here that I've been... Come on, where's my... There it is. And a time of day change. That's definitely not desert, but that's definitely not right either, because it contains a tree. Oh, I know what I did. This... that is what needs to... Wait, wrong. If it contains trees and doesn't contain water. Yeah, things have gotten a little fancier. I bought an art pack at some point and am slowly doing what I can to kind of slap some of that art in. Obviously, I'm only okay, one sec. Where's that create water mesh function? Because that obviously right now is not working as intended. create water mesh, yada 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 yada. If the elevation is this, and we need to get the biome information container again. Equals, let's see here, the data handler we have to grab, get biome information container based on the cell's biome, and the biome info for that area says it contains trees. Wait, no. Sorry, no, the water is not what's wrong. It's actually the tree generation, which is in here. Spawn, yes, I know, trees. Let's see here. If the biome contains trees, if it contains trees is false, or the cell contains water. There we go. My bad, guys. I was wondering why that was like inverted. So, we're going to reveal terrain. We set the time of day. There we go. Our trees are where they should be. And I've been playing with it a little bit. I'm still trying to figure out, obviously my new height limit is pretty high because the camera can practically hit the mountain terrain on the top level, which is not something I really want. Also, you'll notice that I put in zooming and some prettier trees, much prettier trees, to the point where actually the trees now make the rest of the terrain look like complete crap. Also, you'll note it's kind of hard to see. I'll set the time of day back to something a little more optimal for it. You can see the water moving a little better with the addition of a texture on top of it. Before you could only really see these edges shifting up and down. Now you can actually see, if you don't see any edges, you can still see the water movement, which is really nice. Also, the shadows of the various trees look a lot nicer. I keep setting the time of day back just so things are nice and easy to see. So first off, I'm not really seeing any of this shiny new desert system that I put into place. Like, oh crap, did I put the desert after? I might have put it in afterwards. Yeah, I did. Okay, so desert right now is only happening on top of a mountain, which is kind of insane and bizarre. Once again, we need to separate the cold and warm values outwards first. Chopster, at the moment, I don't really want to put anything out and let you guys play with it, if only because it's such a buggy kind of piece of junk, and also because, there we go, this is much better. My only problem is that you'll note that... Did I do this right? Okay, no. This is correct. So we have desert, and then some plains on the inside of it, because once again, remember, each of these determines what's next to it. So we have... What I should do, actually, is I should do this. I should put desert first so that a desert is not surrounded by plains. Or so that a plains is not surrounded by a desert. Because that doesn't make a ton of sense. And this is why I want to get in and put the other code in here to make this a little more... There we go. That's better. Make it a little more easily controllable and make the terrain a little more interesting as well. So that you can have sections like this where it's like, oh, this looks kind of nice. And then we have this mountain in the middle of everything. Like, this is a pretty good looking map, actually. I'm happy with this. You have this absurdly tall bit of mountain right here that kind of blocks off and breaks things up. And I want to do a little work to make sure that I can have some steeper cliffs in here. So maybe I'll do that instead, since I don't think I'm going to be able to get the cross-hatching of biomes in today. That's just too much for the very short period of time I have this morning. So let's try and get that thrown in instead. So there's an interpolation happening somewhere in somewhere. There we go. Here's our interpolation depth. And what this interpolation does is it basically says the lower the number, the less of its surroundings are taken into effect for that cell. So if there's a cell of plains right next to a cell of mountains, right, the two height differences are going to be pretty huge, right? Look at this. This little bit of mountain is suddenly this like spire in the middle of the land. And so what I'm trying to do instead, as much as, ooh, these are actually kind of cool, but what I'm trying to do, and you'll notice like this little biome change in the middle of a forest is causing this hole to get dug. There are some interesting features happening because of this, but the other thing you'll notice is that mountains become these just stupidly huge, like, cliff faces that you can't ever scale. There is no way a person can get up this. It's just gameplay, this is impassable area. And that's not something I want at the moment. I want to have some area be impassable, but I want it to be more like a difficult to pass instead of a just like straight up impossible. So that's why as we turn this number up, it kind of smooths out a little bit. You'll notice that each time I increase that number, that this was one of those giant spires before, and you'll see that that giant spire is kind of smoothed itself out a little bit, because each square is taking into effect what its relatives are as well. So a mountain peak is still going to be mostly mountain, but you'll see it's taking into effect, oh look, I've got these like forest cells around me, and their height is going to be vastly different than that giant spire of mountain before. I like these little patches of desert. I just wish they weren't surrounded by water in some ways. Also, I kind of wish they were a bit larger. But as we add more biomes, because of the nature of random numbers and how they work, we're going to end up having smaller biomes that are spread a little thinner. So I'm going to have to tweak the terrain settings to make up for that. So I was on 4 before for our biome interpolation depth. I'm actually kind of liking some of the lower numbers, but what you'll notice is, like right here, this mountain, that giant spire we had before, has been pretty much flattened out to nothing, because it's surrounded by all the forest tiles. You can hear the dog outside. So that's kind of the one problem, is that you miss some of those huge spires unless it is nothing but, let's see if we can find like a giant mountain set. And like it becomes a much more difficult problem. Okay, here we go. Here's one of those giant mountain sets, and only some of these top tiles are actually as high as we would like them to be. Also, everything becomes gradient. That's kind of the big issue, right? This makes everything a gradient, and I don't want everything to be a gradient. So, what we're going to do is we're going to turn it back up to 4 to do kind of our lots of smoothing. But what we're going to do is we're going to use another simplex noise gradient on this biome interpolation depth and see if that helps. I'm not sure if it will, but it's an idea I had, and I really want to give it a shot. So what we're going to do, this will become k max biome interpolation depth, and we're going to create a new integer called our biome interpolation depth. And I'm actually going to fill this out to the full name length, because constants I like to have be very verbose and wordy. RoboMonster is asking, what would I say is the advantage to coding in C++ versus a scripting language in something like Unity? Control. That's really all there is. It's just pure, unleavened control. In C++, I can do all kinds of stuff that I might not be able to do in Unity, because Unity does not give you the kind of control you need. For example, if I need a variable added to the GameObject class, You can't do that in Unity. GameObject is a sealed class. You're just kind of boned. I also have better memory control, better shader control, right? I don't have to write these silly, like, Unity-specific shader, or I don't have to write it in CG. I can write this in whatever I want. I can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Granted, Unity's got some interesting code editor connections, but at the end of the day, you still have more control with an actual programming language over using a editor with scripting capabilities. You can always extend from GameObject. Yeah, so you can always extend from GameObject, but say you need to add a variable to GameObject. Say you want all of your objects to have a certain bit of information added to it, such as, before they had 2D tie-ins, right? When Unity was purely a 3D thing, say I wanted to add 2D to a GameObject. I can't. It's a closed system. And that's actually the case with a lot of game engines as well. But with a programming language, once control, you could sometimes hop in and do things you weren't meant to do in the first place. Ozd player asking where I learned C++. University. Lots of college. Spent a lot of time at college doing that. Let's see. Octave noise. Yeah, 2D. Oh, okay. And I need to come up with a biome interpolation depth on a per cell scale. Biome interp depth is let's see here. How do we do this? The interpolation depth is going to be octave noise 2D, so we're going to use a noise function to generate our biome interpolation depth, and what we're hoping is that it's going to go between 0, actually, we have a scaled function, why don't we just use that? Scaled octave noise. Much better. Okay, how many octaves? So octaves are the number of layered noise functions that get run on top of each other to create something that's more noisy, because a single octave looks very much like kind of a set of hills. That's all it is, right? It looks like a 2D or 3D visualization of a sine wave. It's not terribly interesting. It's when you start matching one on top of the other that it gets a lot more interesting. So let's go with something fairly simple, and then we'll kind of play with it from there. Let's go with 2, and maybe we'll make this more crazy as we go. Persistence is the rate at which we keep old data. So every time we add a new octave, so we have an octave on the bottom, we set a new octave on top. Persistence is how much of that old data continues to persist when we layer the new stuff on top. If we made this 0, if we made persistence 0, that would mean that when we put the new layer on top, we are completely wiping away the old layer, which would be unhelpful. So we'll just, for now, I'm just going to slap some numbers in here. Scale is the rate at which, it's kind of the frequency of the sine wave pattern in every direction for the noise. It's the rate at which you move through the noise gradient. And finally, our low bound is 0. Our high bound is going to be maximum biome interpolation depth. And we have the cell's X index and the cell's Y index. Let's actually grab this cell a little earlier. Let's grab it, say, here, so that I can use the cell's center. So here's our cell center, and we're going to grab it from our cell with a get center function. Surprise, surprise. And cell center.x, cell center.y. There we go. So the reason I'm using cell center instead of these indices is that the indices are always going to be the same distance apart, no matter what, right? Because they're integers. They can't ever be more than 1 apart at minimum. Versus if I change the cell size, I want my data to also change accordingly. So I'm using the cell center because if I make my cells larger, the cell center is going to get pushed away from each other. And if I make the cells smaller, they'll be right up against each other. And so we want to make sure that our data matches. So here's our cell center being used for that instead of just these indices. So let's see. Oh, the other thing we have to do, I just realized. Game utils. Right now we've got a floating point number. We just have to flatten that floating point number to an integer. Aw, you guys, you're so sweet. I like to try and explain my things, if only, not just for your own help. It's nice to have you guys following along. It helps me as well, because when I talk out loud like this, which is something I can't do in most office environments, without people getting angry at me, it allows me to kind of understand what I'm doing. And if I make any clear, obvious logical fallacies while I'm sitting here writing the code, I'm just going to go, oh, I'm an idiot. Let's not do that instead. Or, hey, maybe this is a problem that I need to get around. Elba, this is the C4 engine. The details are actually in a link in the stream details below. If you're interested in looking into the engine I'm using, this is definitely not Microsoft Visual Basic. I used to know Basic a long time ago. I haven't actually written anything in Basic in... Oh god, it's been years. I used to make Christmas cards, digital Christmas cards, in Basic. And something crashed. What crashed? Okay, if the interpolation depth is 0... I think I need an if statement for if the interpolation depth is 0. Or I just need the interpolation depth to always be 1 at minimum. Let's just crank it up to 1 for a moment. There we go. So the problem with an interpolation depth of 0 is that you now have this like bizarre setup where let's just reveal terrain so we can look around a bit. If it's 0, you're not even taking your own cell into account. So that's interesting. So I'm liking some of the details. I'm actually not sure. I'm going to mess with some of these parameters that I was showing you guys earlier. I do like some of this terrain. It looks very cool in some ways. Actually, you know what? I'm going to unlock my zoom out feature a little bit as well, because it's kind of annoying to only be able to zoom out so far. That lives inside my camera class, which is in my world folder. Okay, the max distance, we're going to unlock it to like 25 for now. We'll fix that later. Elba, I have looked at Unity. My current... I guess, yeah, it's my current job. I'm just not working it yet. My current job is a educational game designer, and I will be using Unity when I start that job. So, interesting. Very interesting terrain. I do like that some of the holes in the terrain still kind of exist, but then we also end up with stuff like, you'll notice it's kind of gradiated on this side and then steep cliff on this side. I like that. That's really pretty and does a really good job for some of the stuff that I'm looking at. Let's tweak the parameters a little bit and see if we can get anything better out of this. For example, let's make it really frickin' noisy. Let's crank it up to like 5 octaves. Now granted, the more octaves we add, the more, let's see here, zoom way the heck out to look at our terrain. So oddly enough, making it noisier, I don't think did us any favors. This is a very interesting yin-yang kind of lake, by the way. Game needs bears and penguins? Maybe eventually. I mean, you know, you'll need things to hunt, and in cold environments, it would be cool to have penguins, and in warm environments, have bears that also maul your villagers.
Aren't penguins a protected species?
Not in my game. So, okay, let's try making it really
PETA is gonna
unnoisy.
get on your tush if you put penguins in as a hunting object.
Thank God. I need the free advertising if PETA gets on my ass for this. Hey, everything PETA goes after, it's just free advertising for them. PETA's kind of, unfortunately, ineffectual these days. So, I'm not seeing the craziness. I kind of like the in-between that we had. Like, you'll notice that we've got a little bit of sheer cliff on one side, gradiated curve on the other going on, but it's still not, I don't know. Let's keep with this in-between. Maybe we'll make the gradient change faster, see if that gives us more of an effect. The problem is you can do little more than look at some test cases when you're doing stuff like random terrain. And you'll notice that my random terrain is always the same right now because I've removed and set the randomized elements to be the same every single time. So that makes my life a little bit easier as a designer. And it also tends to end up making the system very deterministic. And then you can turn it off, essentially, and end up with something a little more interesting, like this. Note how it's generating these giant flat planes. I'm kind of tempted to raise the planes up a little bit, if only so that they aren't so water-based. And also allow forests to go a little lower as well, so that the forests can generate some lakes and streams in them. That would be all data that changes inside this data file. We have our desert, which can't really generate water. We have our, or I guess I should say rarely generates water. Let's turn up that chance ever so slightly, just so it's not like a droplet of water in the middle of a giant desert. That just wouldn't make sense. And the other thing we want to do eventually, right, not for today, or maybe later today or whatever, depending on how time goes, I'll probably end up doing it tomorrow, we're going to end up adding in tree types and tree densities to this file as well, so we can come in and say, okay, forest trees, or forest biomes, will only have conifer trees, versus mountainous terrain will only have redwoods, versus this other area, tundras will only have spruce trees, or I don't know. That's probably not right. Tundras would have pines, I think. Either way, that's kind of what's on the list of biome diversification stuff that will be coming in the future. We'll rip out this stupid contains trees and swap it out for something else. So, okay, biome planes. I'm just gonna get its color, there we go. Get its color to look a little nicer. The one thing I notice about planes is it's so incredibly flat that it's not really helpful to anybody, nor is it terribly interesting. There we go. So that's another thing I didn't really consider. These color specifiers, I should probably make them relative to the minimum and maximum height so that every time I change, I'm actually going to write that down in my Trello on my list of shit to do. And it is a bug. Make color specifier height relative to minimum and maximum heights instead of absolute. Cool. The bug list is unfortunately getting larger by the second, but that's good. And we're coming up with problems that need to be solved. Bugs are not all inherently, oh, the game crashes at XYZ. Sometimes a bug can be, oh, code exhibits this bizarre, unexpected behavior. And just kind of how it goes. I'm also going to tone down the max height of mountains. It's a little out of control. Yeah. I don't want any numbers going over 1 for now. I'm just kind of getting picky about things, because I'm going to have to change it later anyway. I may as well not have to completely change everything. There we go. So, okay, we've got our spires over here. And then we've got this gradiated edge, but it's gradiated all the way around. We've still got yin-yang lake, but I don't expect that to change a ton, honestly. Man. So I'm just kind of seeing what we can pull out of this. If there's anything interesting we can get. If any of this ends up looking stupidly cool, I might leave the parameters there for a while. I'm just kind of playing with numbers. Unfortunately, because I'm low on time as is, I do need to get running soon. Sorry for the very incredibly short stream today, guys. I'll probably end up doing a much longer one in the near future. Huh. So honestly, I'm not actually seeing anything too terribly interesting come out of most of this. I think the most interesting stuff that I was seeing was this combination here. Let's see here. Where you have some sheer cliffs, some graduated sides. I kind of like that setup. It's still very graduated, and that's the only concern I have at this point, is that some of this is really graduated on every single side, and I'm not seeing as many harsh cliffs as I would like. I was kind of hoping I could, let's see here, 2.5? Kind of hoping I could get this dialed in before I go. If you guys have any questions, curiosities, I'm more than happy to answer those while I poke at this. Ooh, I like this a bit better. Here's sheer cliff next to somewhat graduated sides on it, and more sheer cliff next to more graduated sides. Maybe that's what I needed to do. Just turn down the persistence a little bit, and I end up with some crazier values. I do like that. It's not quite impassable, but it's more difficult. You cannot walk up this side if you want to get up here. You have to take some crazy winding route, probably around this side, and then up if you want to get up here. Oh, and there's our little person. No idea what he's off doing, but we can set down a job for him at some point. Oh, poor little guy. He also seems to think he can swim. Huh. Wonder when that happened. We also need to get lighting turned on these little dudes. Right now, obviously, they are complete unlit objects. They don't suffer from poor lighting at all, which is, oh, you know what? He's probably walking to the peak of this, and maybe there isn't a way up. At least, maybe there isn't a valid way up. And so without a valid way up, it just kind of... Right now, the Pathfinder breaks if it can't find a valid way from point A to point B. That was actually a valid path. It just was a straight line. That's bizarre. This, though, is not valid. This, the little stinker, is just wandering through water for. Alright. Not really. Also, at this height, you can see just how uniform some of those waves look. We might want to mess with that in the future. On to the Trello board it goes. Under bugs. Waves are too uniform. They could use some noise. Yeah. That actually would be maybe a way to do waves. Instead of using sine waves, use three-dimensional noise. Whoops, sorry. Three-dimensional noise might do the trick. Because you use 2 dimensions and generate height, and then your third dimension is essentially time, and you'll watch the waves shift and change. That would be at least a little more random instead of this obvious sine wave where, let's pull up the wireframe real quick. Like, you can see it moving in very obvious sinusoidal patterns right now. It's just kind of how it is, because I am using the sine function. My only problem is that I'm pretty sure the noise function is heavier in terms of computational usage than something like noise. Because noise is a giant, ugly algorithm that's used to generate some really interesting results versus so I guess one thing we could do that I didn't really consider, and it's something I should consider because the sine function I'm using inside the water controller is currently one of the heavier objects in this game, is that I could pre-compute a bunch of values and then interpolate between them. And so the waves would follow a certain rotating pattern like they currently do, but what would end up happening is it would loop over itself, and we would end up following a certain pattern on all of our nodes forever. That might not be too bad. I'm just going to put a detail inside this bug note just so I remember that. So I'm going to pre-record noise values, then interpolate between them. That should make water prettier. But once again, these bugs are mostly graphical based, and a lot of the stuff here I'm trying to do is gameplay. So the reason I'm trying to change biomes, or the reason I'm trying to make them smoother, is so that we don't run into this problem of right now the biomes are very, for lack of a better word, they're very steep, and that steepness breaks our gameplay. It causes these impassable areas, and that causes our guy to walk through water. It's one of the reasons the guy walks through water. I need to figure out a better solution for that as well. When you can't...
He's not Jesus?
When you pathfind to a point... No, he's not. When you pathfind to a point that's not possible, he shouldn't just walk straight there. He should try to go to maybe the next closest one. Or maybe he should try and discover whether or not he can like walk halfway there and then halfway again. Just to kind of figure out what's wrong. So, okay, we've got noise plugged in for this. I do have to say, I like what it's outputting as its result. My only thing left is I want to crank this persistence down really low, just to see if that gives us anything like insane or really cool looking. A lot of today is just experimentation. Kind of playing with values. Ooh, that's a little noisier and angrier looking, which is nice for mountains. I don't want mountains to be this nice bit of terrain that you can always walk up and down. Look at that harsh cliff, followed by gradient next to it. I like it. Da-dum-dum-dum-dum-dum. Oh gosh. Stepepper, did I make the engine myself? No. C4 engine. Details in the link. I don't know if I answered that already, but I noticed people are asking questions and I haven't been answering them, so I'm sorry. I'll get to those now. Waves as in water? Yes. Yes. Sorry. I was talking about my water stuff. Specifically, the way I'm using sine right now to, you can see I'm articulating the waves over a sine path. That's all there is to it. There's not a ton to it. It's very simple. The problem is sine is a very computationally heavy function to call, and if I could, I would rather use up more memory to save myself the processing speed. Because everything you do in programming will either take up a lot of memory or take up a lot of processing speed. It's one or the other. Imagine you could make a game where every single outcome is already stored in memory. Something like a choose your own adventure, right? There's no processing time to go from one state to another. And so the game is insanely fast. Millions of frames per second, whatever, doesn't matter. It's going to be fast. But it's going to take up a lot of memory the larger your game gets. As opposed to something like this, where right now, none of this terrain exists in a file anywhere, right? I generate this at runtime. So that means I am trading the space in memory that I could be using to save all these files, and I'm trading that out for the processing time it takes to generate these levels when I start the game. So that's kind of my two sides of the argument here. Whiteland asking whether or not I managed to get the normal of the waves working. I didn't, and I don't really care to. At least not until I'm getting to the point where that matters. If I get to the point where that matters, then I will definitely be happy to dive in on that. I have some flickery shadows. Little bit flickery. Not the end of the world. I also like this little dot of island here. Don't know what it's for, but it's there. So Stepepper, it's the C4 engine, and the API it's built around OpenGL specifically. OpenGL, and on Windows systems it uses, I believe, just basic Windows message processing as well as X input stuff. In Whiteland, this could turn into a live pathfinding thing. What I could end up doing is using A* for the basic point-to-point stuff, and then as the point-to-point fails, I could say, well, here's the point to closest point, and then when I get to that point, I could then use steering behaviors to get him the rest of the way there, if possible. Now, granted, the point-to-point A* stuff will give me a pretty good approximation of whether or not I can ever reach that point. So, if I can't get there with A*, chances are I can't get there at all. Gavin, yes, there are multiple models for trees. I've got a large, medium, and small tree right now. Let's see, can I find an example with all three? This looks like it might be all three. Yeah, these three right here. Whoops. So if I zoom in, you'll note that this is I have a small tree right here. I'm not blending my speeds. Let's change the time of day too. Really? Okay, fine. We'll just do it by hand. Time of day 8. There we go. So multiple tree models where each tree model is not just different heights but different numbers of polygons. You can actually see the wireframe for them is a little complex. I might try and simplify that later, but they're not mine, so I also need to figure out how they did certain details here. But yeah, no, there's small, medium, large conifers, and then I just have a whole bunch of models for other things I'm going to eventually get done as well. I just like how the fact that they're generating these really cool shadows now. Multiple minerals and mining. There isn't mining yet. I don't know if I'm going to put mining in or not, but it would make sense to have mining as like, here's how we get scrap metal kind of thing. Or here's how we get ores that we can, you know, forge into scrap metal and use for electronics. Also, something of note here, the diffuse on these is incredibly bright. Even when it's nighttime, you can still see all these trees really clearly. I don't like that. In fact, maybe I can fix that real quick, since I'm in here. We are going to... Let's look at the medium trees. So here's our basic medium tree model. And you can see it's got the actual physics object, the cylinder shape on the inside as well. But the big thing here is that this terrain, it's built almost primarily off of this texture map. In fact, yeah, I'm not seeing any other ambient settings, so I don't understand how it's staying so bright. How is it staying that bright without... I don't know how to turn down that. Oh. Well, that will help. That's for sure. So, Bram, it definitely will not be anything like Minecraft. Not anything like Minecraft. I just happen to use a terrain style that looks like Minecraft, but in all honesty, there's no Minecraft elements in here. You don't collect resources in the same way. You don't control any characters. You just kind of give out vague orders. Something along the lines of what Gavin suggested. More like Dwarf Fortress, yeah. Minecraft clones are so dead. Dwarf Fortress stuff is probably a better approximation. Dwarf Fortress doesn't... I guess it does actively try and kill you from time to time. I've been relating it to Banished in terms of mixture of City Simulator and other stuff going on. But the game will actively be trying to kill you. It's not just your standard, like, this is a simulation. Like, Dwarf Fortress is insane. They simulate everything from the temperature of your dwarves down to, you know, the vague humidity of the air and whether or not each animal can survive. Like, I'm honestly amazed at some of the Dwarf Fortress stuff that goes on. I will not have anything to that degree. Okay, so the medium trees might look better at this point. I say might because I'm not sure. Let's crank our time of day to something stupidly late. Oh, I actually want the time of day not late, but I want it between my sun transitions. So that didn't work. Let's see here. World, test world. I think I need to make this two-sided in order for this to happily work. And we need to export that out. Except that didn't look like it worked a ton either. It just looks like their base ambient is really bright. And that's really unfortunate. I mean, look at this. This ambient is way too high. These things should be getting hit by shadows and just be dark in general. I have no idea what's going on here. I'll have to figure that one out in the future. Yeah, I don't know what it is. The last few times I've tried to stream, it's always been at the same time as Handmade Hero or a couple other big streamers who, like, just decimate any chance of me having a decent viewer count. I'm kind of curious what this this German streamer is up to. Kind of sort of curious because he's got 350 viewers. It always kind of It doesn't tick me off, but it always kind of catches me off guard when a non-game developer is streaming in the game development section. Because you'd think they'd be able to get a lot more viewers. Yeah, he's just playing a game. This isn't game development. You just think you'd be able to get to, more viewers in a non-game development section, so it makes me think there's like, oh, another big guy who's doing his stuff. There isn't. He's playing a game. Oh, well. It's also always interesting to see what other people are doing at the same time. Alright, so... So we've got our interpolating. Or we've made it noisy, gradiated noisy. Kind of what we were aiming for here. Farewell.
Goodbye. Have a good day. Thanks.
Oh, is there anything else I really wanted to get done is the question. Because that was my big idea. I woke up this morning and went, oh, that would be cool. If I could do this, it would be really neat and make this feature not completely pointless. Or at least it wouldn't oversimplify my terrain. Which it doesn't, which is cool. Dive into the trees, see if I can figure out what's going on with them. Ugh, that's frightening. You know what? I have one more idea for those stupid trees. Let's take this light, turn it off. Actually, can I just disable the node? Yeah, let's just disable the node. Let's not actually mess with our brightness. Cast shadows, unified with ambient, shines through portals. Okay.
Can I borrow your mouth?
My mouth?
Yes.
What's that?
Pomelo.
Alright guys, if I keel over on stream, it's the girlfriend's fault. This is pomelo. It's apparently a fruit?
Mm-hmm. It's a citrus.
Citrus.
A giant grapefruit.
Oh god. Yeah, these things are monstrous. They're the size of a large child's head. Actually, no, larger. This fucker. Size of my head. Not really. When I put it in perspective, it is. This thing's huge, though. Seriously. I could play, like...
Water polo.
I was going to say dodgeball with this thing.
No, God, no. This thing's heavy.
They're kind of grapefruit-like. It's a little...
Sweet. Mellow. It's a very mellow grapefruit.
I don't know. It's a little sour. A little tangy. It's kind of weird, too. You can see... I don't know if you guys can catch this on stream, but it's kind of like... It's made up of all these little cells in the same way that...
I peeled it like a... like... citrus.
I'm also dropping them all over my desk.
They're in sections like this.
Ah.
I peeled it.
Wait. Remember, guys, it's always romantic to say, I pomelo you to your loved ones. Kind of looks like a heart. Or a pair of kidneys. I'm not quite sure. Anyway. Nom nom nom. Brains. How do you think I'm so smart, guys? Come on. Gotta keep up. Where's my... Really? Reveal terrain. There we go. Alright, you know what? Do we have... No, we don't really have a ton of time. We gotta get going soon, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Alright, guys. It's been fun. If you have any more questions, please feel free. Ask away. I'm going to poke at this a little more. Probably for another 10-15 minutes. But I do have to take off bright and early. I might be back later. I wouldn't count on it. If only because today is a busy day. I have lots I need to get done, unfortunately. But thank you again for joining me, guys. For those of you who are, it's your first time here, I am making kind of an RTS survival-ish game, something on the lines of Banished, Stalker, and a couple other games kind of mashed together in one, with some interesting mechanics that I've only partially implemented at this point. So, you'll watch me make mostly gameplay stuff, and then do some art here and there. But yeah, that's kind of my shtick. If that's what you like, or if you just like looking at my pretty face on camera, then you can hit the follow button below, and you'll see whenever I come online next time. I try and do Wednesdays and Saturdays at bare minimum, and then I've kind of fit in other streams when I can, because unfortunately my schedule is a little bit hectic. Hopefully that'll settle down once I start the new job in the, I think it's second week of March. I've got 2 more weeks of pretty solid free time and streaming time for you guys, so we'll see how that goes.
1 more week.
I am so very pretty. Look at this.
1 more week, dear.
1 more week? What?
February ended.
Oh dang.
It is
Okay.
ending.
I have one more week until my new job starts. This is what happens. You lose your job, and you lose your sense of time. All sense of what day of the week it is goes right out the window. For example, I only know today is Friday, because yesterday I had a dental appointment, and I know that dental appointment was on a Thursday. Give it a couple days, I won't remember what day of the week it is anymore. You just kind of lose your sense of like, is today Monday? Is it Wednesday? No, maybe it's Tuesday. Crap. When you don't go to work, it's kind of a meaningless thing in some ways. Yeah, I have a very pretty face, one I haven't shaved in weeks. I'm very fuzzy.
Girlfriend likes it.
Yeah, girlfriend likes it, but I don't know. We'll see. I don't exactly want to walk into a new job with, like, stubble. Or not even stubble, like, couple-week-old fuzz? No, nuh-uh. And we're not going to try and go, like, or, oh, what's that other streamer? Oh, I don't remember his name. Or JP style, I guess. Right? I don't want to go in with, like, JP style, like, big old beard. I'm not going for that yet. We'll see. Did I say nude job? No, new job. Sorry, my nose is still... I think I have allergies. My nose is kind of plugged up. And so,
You won't take anything.
No need to yell.
Stubborn brat.
Dekarki, there's a bright time of the day? I mean, I guess that's what right now constitutes as, but, I mean... People say there's this sunlight thing. I don't know. I've heard about it. It sounds nice.
You think it sounds painful.
I don't know. Yeah, my nose has been stuffed up, and so when I say new, I have to really enunciate, or people... Yeah, it sounds like I said nude. Guys, I have this nude job. Alright. I think... Oh, I'm trying to remember. I think his stream is like Carnage or something. He's got the most epic beard. There it is. C-O-H-H, Carnage. Let's see if I can find a picture of this dude. Because this drawn image is pretty freaking relevant, right? He's got... Let's see here. Images... Da-dum-dum-dum. Like, this is a pretty... Look at that. Look at that epic motherfucking beard. Ugh. Disgusting. How can people get away with stuff like that? Epic beard. Like, anyway. I'm not jealous at all. Not at all. Alright, trying to think if there's anything else I can do, but we really gotta get going. So... I'll thank you guys again. Those of you who stuck around to the end, watch me eat things and talk about silly crap. Thank you again for putting up with my insanity. Yeah, I don't want to have to shampoo my face. That gets kind of weird. It's like, I don't mind shampoo here. Shampoo here and here would be kind of weird. We're not gonna... Nah, I'm good. Anyway, thanks for sticking around till the end, guys. I must run off. I'll try and stream again soon, and we can finish up the biome diversification stuff, get it to look a little more interesting, have more interesting biomes. And eventually I want to add in things like rocks and fauna and a little more than just kind of the boring, the boring slapped on terrain that I've got. While it looks kind of neat, slapping textures onto things isn't really having the effect that I want it to, which is fine. It just means I have to be a little less lazy. Oops, I turned off the sun to make a point that these are always way too bright. Crap. Let's see here. Material. I think it's the vertex. No, it's not the vertex coloring material. Don't save. World. One of my materials is off. It's generating too much ambient color. That's my problem. If we look at this default material, oh my god, come on guys, what the heck is with this? No you don't. You three, closer, you up here, you there. There we go, much better. Right, texture coordinate comes in, it gives us our various outputs, and then we multiply that output with the diffuse reflection to get the light reflection, and then the ambient reflection. If I kill this, okay, first off it says the graph's incomplete. What if I do something like, not this, this? What if I do that? Part of me is really curious. If I completely just muck up this, I'll do it just for one. We'll try it first. Because without a light, you'll notice this thing has just gone completely dark. And that might be what we want. So, save to model resource, save, done. Cool. Load world, test world. So, time of day 12. Oh, also I have no sun turned on, so that'll kind of mess with things, won't it? Without a sun, you'd think all of the entire set would be black, and yet it means I have too much ambient turned up. World, test world. Infinite light, let's turn you back on. You're not initially disabled, please. Ooh, look at that. Oh, look how much prettier that is. Holy crap. The dark side of the tree. Sounds like an album I could write. So here's our differences, right? Here's a tree that has that turned on, and here's a tree that does not. And if we take our time of day and crank it to one of these extremes where the sun is like, it's just coming up. Look at this difference. Oh, that's so much nicer. So much nicer. We might want to turn a little bit of ambient on, just so that it's not complete garbage, but I like that a lot more. And I opened the wrong world file. Sure, save world. This is something we can fix nice and quick. So let's do, whoop, I keep opening the wrong file. Medium, yes, okay. So I'm going to crack into the shader, and instead of doing a constant black color, what I'm going to do is take this scalar, and I'm going to make this a pretty small number. And then we are going to use a multiply to take the color that the texture map is going to give us. And we're going to multiply it by this scalar that we've got. And I'm going to spread this stuff out a little bit so that it's not as... because you're going to go there, and you are going to go here. I don't like crossing the lines. Never cross the streams, guys. Remember, important rule. At least we avoid if we can. So, now, the actual texture map is not just pure black, it's actually an off color. Yeah, I thought I was leaving too. I just found a fix for something, and I really quickly want to, like, slap it in place and get it done. let's 10 seconds. Apply this to everything. We're going to import the new terrain default. And we're going to take this, and the new terrain default, set material, delete the old one, world, save to model resource, done. Next. I thought I was leaving too. I'll be done in a moment. We don't need that one. Tell you that for sure. Set model, or set material, sorry. And then we jump into here. We're going to rip out the old material. Save the file, save it to a model. And actually I need to swap that over to a... wow. There we go. That's so much better looking already. All the trees following a very... a very uniform lighting model. That's what I need. I need my terrain to follow the same lighting model as well, but we'll get to that eventually. We'll get to that on a different stream. For now, guys, thanks for joining me. I made trees pretty. Yeah. Yeah, that looks so much better. I mean, look at this. They're very pretty trees. The shadows are a little but we can work on that. Get a little more aliasing or anisotropic turned on, and that should clear itself up in a heartbeat. That's sexy. Alright, guys. Kevin, you should do your taxes. You really ought to. I did mine. I got a fair hunk of money. I'm putting it into new faucets in the house. And possibly a hot tub. I like my refund. Very pretty. And yes, we printed ourselves, or we rendered ourselves some happy little trees. Next time on stream, we'll work on our fluffy little clouds in the sky. No. Clouds come later. Thanks again, guys, for joining me. Have a good night. Take care. Have a good day. I shouldn't say night because I know you guys aren't all nighttime either. Derp. Have a good day, guys. Take care. Hit the follow button if you are interested in seeing more of my shenanery. Otherwise, catch you next time. Bye.